So we are here just to discuss about classical homeopathy and syntropy, I would say.
Yes.
And my name is Maurizio Paolella. I'm a classical homeopath. I'm practicing in Rome, and
I'm Ulisse Di Corpo. I'm a psychologist and statistician, and I've been working in the field of syntropy, well, maybe in the last 20 years now.
yeah, and I'm working in this field of classical homeopathy since 1986, I guess. So it's a long time. And what I was really struck by in meeting Ulisse almost by chance was that he said something about syntropy, that a word I never knew, never heard of even. He said there's something about homeopathy and syntropy that you might find interesting. So I wanted to explore further, and here we are after a few months with my real deep feeling that homeopathy and syntropy has a lot in common. They have a lot in common. I don't know if syntropy can be a full-blown explanation on the homeopathic medicine principle, but there's an amazing, interesting overlapping about these two things, as I suppose also many other human fields.
Yes.
That can be seen in this syntropic kind of explanation. So you can maybe say something.
Well,
about
what I was telling Maurizio when we met is that this theory of syntropy stems from the fundamental equations in physics, the equations that combine special relativity with quantum mechanics. Well, what is particular of these equations is that to have the solutions you need to use a square root, and square roots always have a positive and a negative solution. The positive solution is forward in time, the negative solution is backward in time. So what these equations say is that there is a causality which moves forward in time and a causality which moves backward in time. Well, in the 1920s, the physicists rejected the backward in time causality, saying that it was impossible. Even if it was in the equations, it was considered to be impossible. But in 1941, a mathematician, one of the big geniuses of the last century, Luigi Fantapié, he said, well, I can't accept that physicists have rejected half of the fundamental solutions of the equations, and he started working on the properties of the forward in time solution and the backward in time solution, and he discovered that the forward in time solution describes energy which diverges from a cause in the past and which is governed by the law of entropy, which means the tendency of energy to dissipate. Whereas the backward in time solution is governed by a symmetrical law, which for us that we move forward in time is energy which concentrates in different points. It creates differentiation, complexity, structures, and order. Listing the properties of the backward in time solution, Fantapié found exactly the properties of life. And so he came to the conclusion that life, instead of being caused by the past, is caused by the future. And this is the link with the homeopathy, because if life is a retrocausal system, causality just works in a symmetrical way, in a opposite way.
Can we say also paradoxical way?
Yes, in a paradoxical way, because for example, in classical causality, if you want to have a big effect, you need to increase the cause. Instead, in the backward in time causality, causes are always smaller in the future. So if you want to have a very strong effect, you need to have smaller and smaller causes, and that is what happens, if I'm not wrong, in homeopathy.
Yeah, you give actually you give nothing, and a lot happens. That's why I'm saying the paradox here, because there's no way to explain it.
Well, no way in the classical, according to classical causality, the forward causality.
Yeah, which overall you can say what we see in the world you cannot explain in any possible way. So I'm saying paradoxical in that sense.
Yes.
But at the same time you keep seeing effects.
Yes.
And in my situation I can say I see the effects also on something that cannot be explained with placebo effects. For example, you can see someone being healed from a pneumonia, something that you can see on X-rays, for example. So you cannot make any guess about psychological or something like placebo effects or suggestions or faith or I also see this in oncological cases. I don't treat them, but I can see in a place in Switzerland where there is a little clinic where I go regularly. I can see cases that have no more cancer after also having included homeopathic treatment in the treatment of the patient. So,
what happens is that with homeopathy, you see the effects, but you're not able to explain them according to classical causality. So what happens is usually, well, at least say in many countries, like for example here in Italy, homeopathy is not accepted as a mainstream approach to healing, and it's often considered not scientific because it's not clear which is the causal mechanism. Well, the syntropy theory introduces a new type of causality. It says that when we're talking about life, there is not only classical causality, but there is also retrocausality, and this backward in time causality is much more powerful for life than the forward in time causality. So when we have to explain homeopathy or anything that works with life, we have to think in a upside down way, in a symmetrical way.
That's why I was using the word paradox before.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's upside down.
It's just symmetrical, and it's sometimes it can seem counterintuitive that if you want a very big effect, you have to put a very small cause. But it's how it works when you look at causality in the backward in time way. If I'm not wrong, you were telling me about the fact that in homeopathy you often see that the patient, it's like if it goes back in its history. And
well, first of all, we can say overall I can see basically in every single patient that gets better, meaning that who has gotten a real good medicine for him or her with healing properties, has a kind of a stimulation where he or she is better overall. I mean, not only the affection that may be the cause that makes him or her coming to the homeopath, maybe, rheumatic problem or cardiovascular problem or whatever. Persons feel better overall, which is first very interesting thing. Second thing is that in time, getting back into a better shape and a better immune system in a more original way from they were coming from, creates also room for old symptoms to come back. Now this is a sort of something you could see like maybe 50% of the cases. It's not always the case, but is one of our big prognostical sign too, that a cure is proceeding well and it's good for the person when you see old symptoms reappear. It's not that you are getting back to create the old disease as it used to be, but maybe you have a sort of traces of an old suffered symptom that was treated in a wrong way, like with surgery or maybe heavy chemical medications. And just because the medicine recreates an order, obviously recreates an order from starting from the person as it used to be. And so in this getting back, somehow back in time, and this is where the link of your observation is, getting back in time, it can create a sort of ghost, or a sort of new image of an old moment in time that was related to a previous suffering, suppressed. We say suppressed when a symptom or a disease has not been addressed properly.
Yes.
And of course, in our case, properly means with this homeopathic enlargement of the viewpoint, which is never considered this way in the traditional approach.
Well, what I find also interesting is that according to this syntropy theory, when we are oriented towards what we call the attractor, the future cause that retroacts and provides us with this energy which is vital, what we experience are feelings of warmth and well-being, usually in the autonomic nervous system area, which is this area of the body. When we are not oriented towards the source of syntropy, but we're heading somewhere else, we feel emptiness and we feel ill, suffering. And usually we call these feelings of anxiety, and which are very common in everyone's life. When we don't use these feelings to orient our life again towards the attractor, the source of syntropy, then these feelings of suffering, they can grow and become more violent and become physical symptoms. So in one way, what the syntropy theory says is that there is only one illness, which is the fact that we have lost our orientation. Yeah. And when we're going back towards this orientation, our symptoms, they go back from physical symptoms, then slowly towards this emotional or psychological symptoms. And at the end, they can disappear. So there is a regression in the symptoms.
Yeah. This is also interesting because it links to backward to the original observations in homeopathy. I can say overall, homeopathy is a medicine of the essential in humans and in life in general, because homeopathy works also with animals and nowadays they saw in plants too. So it deals really with what is essential in human beings, meaning an invisible cause, an aspect that is invisible.
Yes.
And we don't know what it is, but just for convenience we say it's vital energy. So it's an energetic medicine, and being an energetic medicine, funny enough and interesting enough, has been created also in a way that is invisible, because through a certain process you come to a point where the most effective potencies in homeopathy, you don't see a single molecule anymore under a microscope.
Yes. Well, what it is interesting is that about these two solutions of the fundamental equations, one is the visible solution, the physical solution. The other one, because it moves backward in time, is an invisible solution, what Einstein used to call the transcendental solution of the equations. And but at the same time, this not visible solution is the most powerful one in life, and it would be linked to consciousness, to our feeling of life, our self, and from this point of view, what is more effective in healing might be what is more invisible and not material.
Yeah. And it's the thing that can really solve things that otherwise would tend to come back. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, the depth of homeopathy, and I'm sure that has a lot to do with what you just said in terms of syntropy and stuff, is that always has a selection for the person that whose target is the energy of the person. And what is amazing is that this energy, as we have no way to detect how it works and what it is, because it's not in our common realm of perception, the symptoms and the precision in the symptoms gives the translation, precise translation of what needs to be cured and which medicine has to be selected. And that's, I found personally, still after 25 years, entirely mind-blowing, because as a matter of fact, anyone also can do this. You don't have to be a medium, you don't have to be someone specially psychically oriented or with some kind of special qualities in the capacity of perceiving the energy. But if you go the way homeopathy wants you to go, meaning being very careful in taking all what's going on as the tool to prescribe on the energy of someone, not on only the physicality of someone, you give a medicine and you go straight to the energy of the person.
Yes. Well, that means
that's quite something.
That means, according to the syntropy theory, is that because syntropy is in a way our internal part, whereas entropy is the external reality. The external reality can be known in an objective and quantitative way, whereas the internal part of syntropy can be only known in a subjective and qualitative way. And what I find interesting is that the tendency with syntropy is to go towards unity because it's a converging energy, but the more we converge towards unity, the more we differentiate, the more the complexity increases, and also the individuality of people. So what it is important, according to the syntropy theory, is that we need a way to know the symptoms and the meaning of the symptoms of the people, which is individual and different for each one, because each one needs its own energy to go back to the...
Exactly. And funny enough, and exactly, I subscribe to these words 100%. No two cases are alike. So you can have two common colds. Mostly they would need two different homeopathic medicines, because the show up of how the person brings forth these symptoms are two different energies that matches that. So, and so this also not only speaks strongly, very strongly about the differentiation between one another, but also has a very important, it's something that you cannot ever forget, because you need to prescribe on energy. And if you somehow forget this and take just 1 or 2 symptoms, but you forget to take the other 8 or 10 because you have no time, because you go into routine, you have, you're a busy doctor or whatever, you miss the point entirely.
And because the point is, in a way, looking from my point of view, is to take the person to go back and converge towards, say, this final cause, which is the origin of life, the energy life. And since everyone is diverging in a different way, the energy that each one needs to go back and converge is a different type of energy.
Yeah.
So it's not a mechanical process, but
No.
it's a process that must be different for each subject.
Great. I think I think there was food for thoughts and maybe even more. So we can just finish this and maybe for a second time. Second round. Okay, thank you.